So, Felix, would you mind introducing yourself and your creative background?
For sure. My name is Felix Taylor. I'm a multidisciplinary artist and composer. I live in South London. I live and work in South London. And my practice is quite often based in sound. I'm trying to tell stories and convey feelings and things through sound. And also other objects and images and films. Bits and bobs, really.
So why don't you tell us about your project for Totally Thames?
Okay, so it's a partnership between MSCTY, it's a creative agency, Thames Trust and Uber Boats by Thames Clipper, which are the boats that run up and down the River Thames.
Yeah.
And I've been getting on the boats for a couple of months now and exploring the stretch between London Bridge and Royal Wharf, and writing a piece of music about that stretch, and about the journey and kind of about the stories along that journey, and then also just the things that I feel as I travel that journey and explore that part of London.
So what is it about that part of London specifically that inspired you to create music about it?
I guess a lot about the kind of the diversity of what you see and feel there. Things change so much as you travel down the river, obviously. There's sort of these like grand bits of architecture next to these weird new build things, but then also these like big bits of industry, big warehouses or big quarries full of cranes shoveling dirt. And then in the middle of all of it is this very sometimes calm, sometimes soothing body of water that is carrying me through the whole thing. So I guess there's like a thing about juxtaposition, but then also about kind of the flowing nature of it all.
And what kind of music is it that you've created in response to that?
I don't know. it's a 5-movement piece.
Okay.
That takes a little bit from electronic music and a little bit from ambient music, and then also a little bit from classical music and sort of experimental sound art. There's a lot of field recordings in it from specific points in the journey, but then there's also a lot of counterpoint. There's a lot of interplay between melodies, and then I guess the main structure of it is quite important. It's these 5 kind of distinct movements, small movements. None of them are over 2 minutes long, but it all fits into one piece. But they're these 5 kind of different modes, I guess.
I can see why you couldn't just respond with a genre. It doesn't really fit into any box, does it? So as a multidisciplinary artist, like how comes you chose music for this project and not, say, film or photography, for example?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, well, for starters, MSCTY, the agency that kind of introduced me to the project, is about what they do is they pair sound artists with architectural spaces. Architectural spaces, but then also just geographic areas, and sort of ask sound artists to respond to that. So the kind of brief was in sound, because sound is so vast, but I wanted to challenge myself with writing a piece of music, because quite often my work sort of takes a lot from field recordings and a lot of speech and previously some maybe computer programming, and kind of welds them all together. And I think there was something about this that made me think I want to write a composition, a musical, more standard than my previous work, a musical composition. I don't know quite what that's about. I guess maybe there's something like quite maybe grand about the idea of making a piece of art on a boat. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I'd say so.
Traveling the seas or the river. I should say. But like that idea, I guess the idea there, it just kind of inspired me to make a piece of music with big melodies and obvious obvious changes and things like that,
Hmm.
rather than a more ambient kind of flowy piece.
I mean, that's definitely almost symbolic of the Thames itself, really, isn't it? So
Right.
it
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly.
So, other than the fact that the Thames can carry you almost through different worlds in, the same vicinity, what else is it about the Thames that inspires you?
Wow. Well, so a big part of my practice recently has been looking at bodies of water
Hmm.
and looking at their kind of transformative nature, I guess. Um, and I guess, so generally, I think there's a lot about water and a lot about bodies of water and big bodies of water that kind of, for me personally, I find them very, I don't know if relaxing is the right word, but like I find this to be a very soothing presence.
Hmm.
And I think that's a lot to do with this kind of interplay between the fact that it's a constant thing, but also the fact that it's ever changing. So it's an ever changing entity that is always there,
Hmm.
which I think is quite an amazing thing. You never see the same river twice, but at the same time, it's always going to be the Thames.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? And like, there's also, and then there's things about rhythm. There's a rhythm to the water, and there's a energy to it, and a timing to it
Hmm.
that is like totally unique. I mean, it's unique to water in the natural world, but it's also unique to specific bodies of water, and there's reasons why each specific body of water is different in that way. Just find them a very interesting subject and a very interesting thing to respond to artistically.
Hmm.
Um, and then I guess the River Thames is the most present body of water in my life. I've lived in London all of my life, really. So it's like the most it's the body of water I'm most familiar with. So it's really interesting to interact with it in this way because I haven't
Hmm.
really before.
Yes, I mean, it is one of those things, I guess, as a Londoner, you kind of take for granted. Like you said, it's always
Yeah.
the same river, but it's not. So I think, obviously, when you do something like this, it really does make you look at it in a different light.
Yeah, definitely. And like getting, traveling on it. I traveled on it maybe once before.
Hmm.
And like, and the main function of the river, I say function, but the main dysfunction of the river really, for me, was that it just splits up London.
Hmm.
It's just a bit annoying. You've got to get over it. Do you know what I mean? So it's really interesting to like reframe it and to get that close to it and understand it as something that can, one, be functional and be used to explore the city,
Hmm.
but then also just a place to explore in itself. It's, I was getting off and going to Bermondsey Beach or going to Surrey Quays and actually getting on the banks and recording stuff and taking pictures and just looking at it. And it's like an infinitely interesting site in London.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So, my last question for you, Felix, then is what is one of the highlights of working on this project or creating this project?
One of the highlights.
Mhm.
Oh,
So many to choose from, I'm sure.
yeah. Just, I mean, so I had a really good trip. I've done so many boat trips, I can't even think. But I had a really good one where they let me up into the captain's cabin. I know
Oh.
I've got that wrong. It's definitely not called the captain's cabin. But so if anyone from Uber Boats is watching, I'm very sorry. But it, so that we got up into this cabin and it was at night. So and all of the bridges are illuminated.
Mhm.
And we were just sat there sort of riding through the Thames and looking at all these wonderful lights, and they were telling me all these facts about the river, which was really cool. I'm trying to think, do I know any river facts? I think Waterloo Bridge, this is one that the captain said. He said Waterloo Bridge, and I hope I'm getting this right, is the only bridge to be built entirely by women. And it was built during the World War. It is also the only bridge to be finished on time and within budget.
Well, that I think that says something, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So yeah, that was a really good experience, and kind of both outside, like looking at everything outside, but then also, you know, the cameras, there's loads of cool tech, there's loads of cool screens, and they've got all these readings and stuff. That was just really nice. So yeah, I guess that was probably a highlight. But every time I get on the boats, it was just sick. It was just great.
You've got a newfound appreciation for them.
Oh, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to me today, Felix.
No problem.
And everybody can catch Felix's exhibition by going on the Totally Thames website, and it's until the 30th of September, I believe.
Yes, it is. And you can also, if you get on an Uber boat by Thames Clipper, there is a QR code that will take you there, and you can listen to it on the boat, which is, I recommend, the best way to do it. It's called Float. And yeah, it's featuring my brother Saskia Taylor on the clarinet. And yeah, enjoy it.